Welcome back to Comics, the podcast where me and my mom look through our comic book collection 2 issues at a time. Amazing Spider-Man number 9 is what we're looking at today. This is the first appearance of Electro.
With his money bag.
Yep. That's how you know what's in it. I like his eyes, too.
Yeah.
I wish they'd give you those at the bank.
I know.
Even just get change. Just have a big sack of
Perfectly
pennies.
round sack of dollar bills. I like this pose too. It looks like Spider-Man was sneaking up on him and then
That's pretty much what happens. He doesn't realize that he's
electric,
even though he broadcasts it pretty well, to be fair.
Well, yeah. I mean, even from behind, what is that? He thought that was a trident or something?
This is a first appearance of Electro, which I don't think I had read before. And this is also coming on the heels of most of his original villains. So, like, the Chameleon's already been in it once. The Vulture's appeared a couple times. Doc Ock was in there once. There was Doctor Doom even appears. He's like issue number 5, which is weird. A weird progression because, like, he beats up like bank robbers, and then he like the Lizard or Vulture. Like the Vulture, I guess, has got like that suit, but Doctor Doom seems like a really harsh degree of difficulty. Yeah, I mean the whole Fantastic Four have a hard time beating him. But we'll have to do this Doctor Doom one only because I love Steve Ditko's art, but Steve Ditko does not do a great Doom. It's just a little derp. Look at that. It's a little derpy looking.
Yeah. Oh, his eyes.
You see like the lids behind.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going wrong. I don't know. Look at that. I mean, I know it's a far away shot, but sometimes.
Yeah.
He's not a great thing artist either, in my opinion. He's great at doing human faces.
Yeah.
And he draws really expressive people. And I like how sometimes malevolent looking his Peter Parker is, because we always think of him as like
the jolly,
like a do-gooder, but he's kind of a darker character. He was kind of an incel a little bit.
Although I like that Doom because sometimes they make Doom look like the mask is actually like part of his skin, but that looks like a person behind the mask, so it kind of gives it a little more emotional depth.
He looks sad there.
He does look.
But this early Spider-Man, or the Peter Parker at least, I guess he's still picked on in the newer versions, but he's really like a social pariah to his fellow friends.
Well, yeah,
and so he gets these dark moments of like, oh, I could just beat all their asses because I'm Spider-Man.
I like how he does J. Jonah though.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. He does do really good faces.
I like how he draws all the other villains so far in what I've read of these early Spider-Man. I think he does a great Vulture.
Yeah.
And maybe those are characters he was the first person to draw. Maybe that's why. I don't know. The colors get all burnt up. He looks like he's deep fried.
That's interesting.
He's like extra crispy.
Yeah.
I love his Dr. Octopus. I think is really cool.
Yeah. His Johnny Storm's a little.
He's a little weird looking. But yeah, his Doom is not
Doc Ock is a little right here. He looks like Barney from Homer Simpson The Simpsons.
A little bit. One thing I like about Doc Ock is he does this in a couple of covers or famous drawings where like he'll capture somebody with his arms and then just bitch slap him with his hand. Like you think he'd like punch him or something, but he just gives him a little like wrist flick smack. Just to toy with them. That's one of the great things about these early Spider-Man ones is he really gets beaten quite decisively the first time. I guess that's kind of like a pattern in a lot of comics where like the FF encounter some new foe and then they get really devastated and then reinvent some kind of device. But they really sell it in the early Spider-Mans where his confidence really gets shaken and he thinks about quitting and stuff. Where the FF, they often talk about disbanding, but it's mostly for interpersonal reasons in the team.
Right. Well, Johnny's kind of a jerk.
They all have their moments.
Oh, not Ben.
Oh, they in the
Although
comics. He kind of like escalates things sometimes. Like Johnny picks on him, but
Yeah.
he doesn't need to freak out and like start tearing the walls down and stuff.
True,
for some of
true.
the things that he does.
He does go from 1 to 200 pretty fast.
Yeah. So anyway, the most original superhero of all time, in this great issue, you will meet Electro, a menace so powerful that Spider-Man's strength is useless against him. A book-length comic, Colossal. It's a book-length comic, Colossal, proving again that this is indeed the Marvel Age of Comics. A scene you will never forget. See, the defeat of Spider-Man. We already saw it several times if you
I
read
like
any
how
of
he's
them.
walking away.
Yeah, he just leaves them. He doesn't need to finish them off or anything.
No.
It's weird how much of the cover is taken up by these stupid, like.
Yeah,
I'm already reading it. I'm already half sold on the comic. You know those words are not. It's the image that sells it, I think.
This is a nice page, though.
That's kind of something you don't see a lot on contemporary comic covers. Is like.
Oh yeah.
It's the Marvel Age, everybody.
Yeah, they keep that to a minimum.
Well, especially the really contemporary stuff. I feel like the comic market has changed to be more of a collectible item than a periodical or whatever as entertainment. Anyway.
This must be his greatest foe right there.
Yeah.
The Karen.
See, I told you he does great facial expressions. I like this opening.
Yeah. Aunt May is on her last.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting about this issue. I wanted to pick it because I think they do a really good job of humanizing Spider-Man. And it's weird that he's famous for being like a relatable superhero because he's like still in high school and he's like torn between his real life responsibilities, where you don't see that in like Batman or Superman or Iron Man as much. I guess Superman. He's trying to keep it secret, but like Batman is kind of free of consequences because like he's a billionaire, so he's not gonna run out of money. But that's a huge issue for Spider-Man, and as I know, over the years they've toyed with the idea of Bruce losing his fortune or whatever. But it's not such a common beat of the story.
Right.
So anyway, we start off, our tale begins, a startled group of pedestrians in New York see one of the most colorful characters of all time dash past them at dazzling speed. Look at Spider-Man! Wow, wonder where he's rushing to. Must be a matter of life or death. I like how they all, like one after the other, build on the idea. They're like, it's almost as if I'm elaborating on what you just said perfectly without taking any time to think. And they're all just like strangers on the street, and they're like,
yeah,
it breaks down the social awkward barrier to where Spider-Man, everybody wants to talk about Spider-Man. Yeah, these are more great facial expressions, and there's a range of like I feel like he's good at having a spectrum of emoting.
Yeah, I like how he draws his little wings too.
It's funny that he's relatable, but like they marketed him as such. So it wasn't something like, looking back, because I remember going to there's a Spider-Man exhibit in California at the they have like a museum of the San Diego Comic-Con at the Balboa Park, it's called, which is like got an art museum and stuff too. But at a separate building, they've got that new Museum of Comic-Con that opened in the past couple of years, or I don't know if it still is, honestly. But they had a Spider-Man exhibit, and they're talking all about like the history of him and how he's different from being a relatable teenager. But I didn't realize till I was reading these really old ones that they kind of capitalized on that in the marketing quite a bit. They were very aware of it at the time. It wasn't something that, like, I guess I had understood it as in hindsight, like, oh, nobody really realized it at the time. But like, they were really trying to sell that. Even I'm trying to think of the cover that kind of does that, but I'll find that another time. But anyway, so he's rushing around, and the reason for his haste is because Aunt May is not feeling too well. So a few minutes later, I'm close to home now. Might as well start changing to Peter Parker. He's like on the street with a cat.
This cat's like, holy cow, that's Spider-Man!
Like, is he on a roof? Or this looks like a street lamp.
That's a street lamp, yeah.
It's too dark for anyone to see me, and it'll save me time later. It's like, there's a street lamp right there. It's not that dark. That cat saw ya.
That cat's gonna spill the beans.
Home at last. Now to rush upstairs. Here, Aunt May, I filled the doctor's prescription as fast as I could by switching to Spider-Man because I know how badly she needed this medicine. Thank you, Peter dear, but how did you get back so fast? She looks so old, the way that Steve Ditko draws her. Like impossibly old.
Yes, she does.
If that's his aunt, how old is his grandma? 150? You're such a dear boy, Peter. I'm tired now. I think we'll go to sleep. That's good, Aunt May. The doctor said you should get a lot of rest. I haven't the heart to tell her what else the doctor said about how ill she really is. She's asleep now, but I'd better sit here in case she needs me. Poor Aunt May. She's always been so good to me, just like a mother. If only I could do something. And so Peter Parker keeps the long vigil, not dreaming that a strange figure on the other side of town is going to play a very important part in his life very soon. Very important part very soon. I'm all wired up for what I must do.
Oh, so he wears gadgets.
That's what I believed. I was like, oh, okay, was his electric power becoming an inherent part of him later on in the series? So at first we're met with Electro charging up at these, I don't know what you call these poles or whatever, these superconductors, and he's casing out this armored car, and at first they're like, this town is full of crackpots, search me, and they just dismiss him. But he blasts electricity out of his finger, the same shape of electricity that his costume's made out of. That's what electricity looks like, so Spider-Man should really be more aware.
And they drop perfectly round bags of money.
Yeah. I told you I'd take those bags. Ow, he's tossing electric shocks. Such a goofy...
He comes sliding his feet on the ground as fast as he can.
He's got fabric sheets. It's weird because a lot of the villains before this in Spider-Man's history, like the Chameleon is animal-themed, Dr. Octopus and the Vulture and the Lizard are animal-themed. Sandman kind of breaks the mold, but I guess he's elemental, so we're going in another elemental direction with Electro. They're like, we ran out of animals. We did all the known animals, vultures and octopuses.
Rhino?
No, they didn't think of that till later, actually. Rhino has not appeared yet, so I think Stan probably got the Encyclopedia Britannica between issues. What is this rhino? You see these? It makes me wonder how much of the writing, the plots are Steve Ditko, because I know, I might be, I know, I might be exaggerating, but I think, the Marvel method would be Stan would give Jack Kirby like a premise. So like they fight Doctor Doom and he does this with this machine, but eventually they figure out a flaw in the thing. And then, but the panel to panel is kind of up to Jack Kirby to some degree. That's my understanding. It's not like it's not like Stan Lee wrote like top left panel or like splash page. We see Spider-Man jumping from a building and punching Electro in the face. It was kind of open to interpretation, but like loose. So it makes me wonder how much of the writing and like development of Electro's powers was up to Steve Ditko.
Right.
Or if Stan was like, he has a gadget that does it, or it's part of his body, or there's a terrible accident, or if that was just up for Steve to be like, I guess I'll come up with it when I get to page 8.
Boy, to be a little bird on the shoulder back then.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been interesting.
Well, it's an interesting thing about how this medium, like writing in different mediums, where a lot of writing is a soul activity, or, I guess some things are like, you have like collaborative articles in the sciences where they do an experiment and write a peer-reviewed article, but like, this is a different kind of collaboration. It's like playing telephone, where like, do something like this, and by the end this happens, and then you see how they flesh it out. It's almost like doing a Mad Lib or something.
Right, yeah.
Not all comics, even Marvel people do it that way, but that was kind of the Stan Lee method. So it's weird to think about that. I don't think that happens in music either with songwriting, where they're like, write a song about your truck and you get a flat tire and show me how it comes out. It's probably, it's very line by line.
True, yeah.
Anyway, so he's lighting up everything with electricity, And, it's more than they can handle.
Big, round bags of money on the ground.
Yeah, they're really good at figuring out, like, how much money to put in there and still have, they're the same exact size. They're like, oh, stop, tie it off. They're just asking to get stolen, too. Or you could just, like, slice the bottom of the bag with a knife, take it all, take what you could. Anyway, we're in the next morning in this panel, and we have the doctor visiting Aunt May and Peter. Good thing you called me, Peter. Your aunt is worse. I like how dark they bolded it. We've got to send her to the hospital. The hospital? But Peter, dear, if I go to the hospital, who will look after you? Who will get your meals, take care of you? Please, Aunt May, don't worry about me. The important thing is for you to get well. I can take care of myself, honest. Later at school, Peter is oblivious to the usual taunts of his classmates. I told you, he was really targeted. Hi, bookworm. What's new in Dullsville? What's the matter, teacher's pet? Too busy to answer us common folks.
What a bunch of creeps. Oh,
I know. Flash has a real punchable face in this.
Yeah.
Sometimes Peter's eyes, it's like popping out. I don't know, maybe I've been too rough on Parker. He's more of a man than I thought. I still remember the last fight we had. So in a couple issues prior, I guess it was issue 8, they have a boxing match in school, and Peter's trying really hard to hold back, to not, like, kill him, basically. To not reveal his powers. But I think, also to... But he ends up beating him really decisively. But I think the lizard got loose in school or something like that, or a robot. I might be mixing up the issues. And so Flash turns his head to pay attention to something, and right as Peter's punching him, and he didn't mean to get a sucker punch in, so now everybody thinks Peter's like a dirty fighter, because, you waited till he was distracted by something. So anyway, Flash is thinking about that, and this other kid says, wow, did Peter Parker give you the cold shoulder, Flash, old boy? Yeah, that's what I get for starting to soften up. Puny Parker always was a big zero, and he always will be.
Jeez.
So we're at the hospital, and he's checking on Aunt May. I love how they don't ever specify, at least from what I could tell, what's wrong with her.
Right,
She needs medicine, and then she goes to the hospital, but they don't, it's her heart or something like that. So he's trying to reassure her, and I guess they have to do a surgery is what it comes to. So Spider-Man's out in the rain. I've got to raise some money fast. Aunt May's operation will cost more than we have in the bank. I'll scour the city until I find some sort of crime that I can photograph, and I'll sell the pics to J. Jonah Jameson. But the rain breaks out, and he's like, I can't get pictures in the rain. And he's like, I better rinse out my uniform before it shrinks. So he goes home, and he's wringing out his Spidey suit in the sink.
Puts it on the next day and doesn't even go down to his
got
ankles.
High waters on. Oh, well, I'll leave my duds out to dry. And hey, I forgot, I left the shade up. Boy, all I need is to have the neighbors sing a Spider-Man suit hanging up here. And far into the long night, he's talking about how he's got midterms coming up, and he's got to get money, and his aunt might not make it through the operation, so he's all stressed out. Meanwhile, J. Jonah Jameson has a hunch that Electro is Spider-Man. Which is weird, he dresses up in one identity, and then he's like, I'll assume it's second identity, because he's like, we haven't seen them in the same place kind of thing.
Jameson.
Yeah, it's goofy. The next day at the Forest Hills Bank, but Mr. Jameson, if you wait till tomorrow, we'll have all those figures for you. No, nobody keeps J. Jonah Jameson waiting. I want those figures, and I want them now. Well, sir, you're one of our biggest depositors, so of course we'll do what we can. That's more like it. And Electro bursts in while J. Jonah Jameson's being a Karen to the teller, and he shocks them. He shocks them so they are paralyzed, which I feel like
it's a great picture.
It would just fry their organs or something.
Yeah, you would think.
I like this. His electric bolts are hitting our tie pins, belt buckles, metal tip shoelaces. I don't think I have any metal tips on my shoes.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
usually a plastic.
That's quite a bit older. Yeah, I remember some shoes way back when I was a really little kid.
You don't see a lot of tie pins these days either.
No.
At least in the circles I hang out in.
Yeah, because those shoelaces, if you pulled them out of your shoes, you could whip them at people and snap them really good.
It's good to know. He should have done that to Electro.
Exactly.
I like how one of the right side of his head, it's a little stunted. Asymmetrical. So he uses his electric power to disable the time lock, and he has a more distended bag of money. This one has like a little purse top to it.
It does.
And he's scaling the walls. I guess you can do that with magnetic electricity. Look, that strangely garbed man is racing up the side of the building. He's holding onto the iron beams in the building by means of electric rays, using them like a magnet. Incredible.
How does that guy know that?
He's good at science. He paid attention. So, of course, J. Jonah Jameson, there's only one person I can think of who is so powerful, so confident, who can climb sheer buildings, and who knows me. And there he is now, swinging above. So that was one thing that J. Jonah Jameson was like, how does he know my name? It must be somebody I know. It's like, aren't you a public figure that's very vocal about your opinions, and you publish them in the city newspaper
and
with your big name on it?
He's not nice to anybody on the street.
Right? You're going to remember somebody that's always screaming at you.
Jeez.
Even the cops are like, do you have any proof? It's like, proof? I say it's true, so that should be enough. And they're like, look, Spider-Man's usually catching crooks. I don't know why. That doesn't stop J. Jonah Jameson from publishing Electro is Really Spider-Man in the Daily Bugle. And all the, it shows all the street folks being like, well, why would the newspaper lie? J. Jonah Jameson says it's true, it must be. And then there's a couple of doubters of like, why would he...
this hipster isn't buying it.
It must be. How could they print it if it weren't true? Spider-Man must be Electro. Why would Jameson's paper print it if it isn't true? I read the paper from front to back. They still offer no definite proof. If Spider-Man isn't Electro, why doesn't he catch him? And some people, I think, eventually they're speculating that maybe it's to boost Spider-Man's credibility or something. Like he'll pretend to catch him. I don't know. So Peter looks for an advance. He's like, I need $1,000. And he doesn't say it's for Aunt May's surgery. He just says it's a private matter. And Jameson's like, oh, you probably just want a new hot rod. He's like, you think I'm a bank? Get me some pictures of Spider-Man and prove that he's Electro, and I can give you the money. So exactly 50 seconds later. I love that they say exactly. Not quite a minute. What a fool I am. There's a big reward for Electro's capture. If I can nab him, I won't have to beg the money from anyone.
Yeah, he must really be thinking about Aunt May because you think he would have just wanting to do the right thing, go after him. Mm-hmm. But it's not priority.
Well, it's funny. Parker doesn't, if he had mentioned it was for Aunt May, maybe he could get to Jameson, but he doesn't take that road. He's like, I'm too proud to beg for it,
Right.
So anyway, he stumbles across this guy, stargazing. He looks like a robber.
Yeah, he does.
And he's on the lookout for Electro, so he has a couple false alarms. Let's see. Nope, it's just another false alarm, some workmen making emergency repairs on a power line, and then finally he does stumble across Electro, who's in an apartment building, disabling somebody's wall safe and stealing all this money.
Jeez.
They didn't even have the courtesy to put it in a round sack.
In a round sack.
It's like, I should have brought all those round sacks.
That's an interesting pose.
It's like when you bring your reusable bags to Aldi. He brings his own money bags.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's a perfectly round bag tied to his...
Yep. He's like, might as well reuse them. I mean, these things aren't cheap.
He's getting dumpy. The more he robs.
An unflattering angle. So, Spider-Man confronts him. He wants to get a picture of him to clear his name as Spider-Man, but also to get some money from Jameson. He makes the mistake, though, of trying to make physical contact with him. So he does web Electro, and that distracts him for a little while. It blinds him. He goes to touch him, and Electro assumes that was enough to just kill him. Because, I mean, it probably would.
Well, probably, yeah. A normal person, yeah.
But his spider powers give him spider-induced strength that enables him to survive a shock that can kill an ordinary human. You know how spiders can get electrocuted slightly more than a person. It's well known. So he's like, well, there goes my chance. I'm going to rig up my camera and then take a picture of me running past this thing, because I guess he did snap a pic of Electro doing something similar, and he's like, I need the money more than anything, so I'll show that they're not, that maybe I was changing my clothes. And so they published the proof that Spider-Man is Electro. And then we get Electro's origin story. So he's reading the paper. He's like, aha, they think I'm Spider-Man, and now Spider-Man's dead, so I'm like in the clear. Turns out he was a very selfish lineman. So in this situation, his boss is like, oh, there's a guy stuck up there. We need you. You're our best lineman. We need you to rescue him. And he's like, only if you pay me. He's like, okay, I'll give you $100. And they're like, he only helps people for money. Like, he doesn't give a crap about anyone. And a freak accident happens here, and lightning strikes the tower here, the pole. And he should have been killed, but he's actually stronger than ever. As many things in comic books happen. When it doesn't kill you, it gives you freakish powers. And so he discovers, by touching some metal coat hangers in his closet, that he's been conducting high amounts of electricity. So at first, I guess he's just grateful to be alive. But then he's like, oh, it imbued me with this power. I better get a themed suit.
Wonder if he can shower.
No, gosh, I'm not sure. Well, that's a really good question.
Then after
we're
a
about
time,
to see.
you'd smell him coming.
Stinky old Electro. Hasn't bathed in years. It's unbelievable. My body keeps recharging itself. I'm like a living electrical generator.
Wow.
The more I practice, the more skilled I become. I can do anything with my electric power. I can throw it, use it as a weapon. So he's blowing holes in the floor.
Jeez.
And so he took every cent he had in the world, and he bought a rundown house. And he's like, I'm going to put my big superconductor towers up there, and I got my costume. So that's kind of how he, I guess he's just selfish. That's his,
right.
He got powers, and he's just like Spider-Man is the type of person to get powers, but realize he has to help the world. He gets powers. He's like, oh, now I don't even have to climb dangerous poles. I can just rob people.
Who needs to work?
That was the only thing keeping me back from robbing people was the lack of power. Once inside, Electro moves swiftly. Okay, I should have said in the last panel we were up to the modern day. He's breaking into a prison. So he's going to the federal penitentiary, and he's freeing a bunch of inmates as a distraction and just to be a menace. I can't fight all the police who will be coming after me, so I'll set up an electrical barrier to keep them back until I've finished my job. Minutes later, as Peter Parker is on his way to the hospital, he overhears the police radio, and he's like, I better do something about that. But what? I got to be with my Aunt May. I can't be in two places at once. And she's like, you won't leave me, right? He's like, actually, Electro's... And he can't tell her that, of course.
Jeez.
And Betty Brant shows up. I think that's who that is. I think she's the secretary at the Daily Bugle, and she's like one of the few people that's nice to him. And she stays to watch after Aunt May and to keep him company. Meanwhile, outside the House of Detention... J. Jonah Jameson's there to say, we're going to finally prove that Spider-Man is Electro. And all the inmates are going crazy. Electro's trying to rally them as an army. Wait, I opened the iron gates for you. I give the orders. You must obey me. And they're like, he must be some nut from the Psycho Ward. I like how the police, no guns, but they just start boxing the people. That is going to take a lot of effort. You have all these inmates, you're going to knock them all out with your bare hands? You're going to have billy clubs? That would suck.
Oh.
So they get the okay back at the hospital. She's all right, son. The operation was a success. He's like, okay, peace out. I got to get the hell out of here. And there's a weird miscommunication because he needs to urgently leave. And Betty's like, why is he just, what's wrong with him? Don't go to the penitentiary. It could be dangerous. He's like, well... dangerous picks are the ones Jameson pays the most for. And she's kind of thinking ill of him. And he's like, I wish I could tell her why I really want to go there.
Well, you would think that she would know. I mean,
Well, yeah, just explain. We don't got any money to pay for the surgery. They're going to take her organs back. They're going to repo that shit. So he's going to confront Electro. I really like that shot of Jameson. He's like, wait a minute, crap. How could it be Spider-Man if he's not Electro and his whole world is shattered? I'll be a laughing stock.
Crying.
And he blames Peter Parker for giving him those photos as if he put the idea in his head to begin with. This time Spider-Man's equipped with these rubbers and these rubber gloves. So I guess his boots are rubber. It's funny that he repeats rubber. And so he can maybe punch him out this time. I love this. He's flying down the stairs, like fist first at some of these guys. And Electro is shooting him with this curvy... I guess he can curve the electricity.
Wow, bending it like Beckham. Look.
Oh, yeah, I almost missed out. That's one of the really goofy things about Spider-Man that I did not know in his early days is he has like a belt buckle, like projector light.
That's funny.
It's the sign of the spider. Spider-Man is... You think he would make it the silhouette of an act like on his chest, but no, it's his face, his eyes, and his color scheme. I like how Batman, the city has to project it up into the sky. Spider-Man brings his own, and right before he's like, "I'm just announcing my presence."
He's a shy teen during the day, but as Spider-Man, he embraces self-promotion.
And I bet sometimes he forgets to turn it off, so he's projecting he's swinging through the city.
And Maeve's like, "What is that? Why is your chest glowing?"
So first Spider-Man tries to throw stuff at Electro, and he's like, "You can't keep throwing stuff at me. I'm going to get you eventually." But he's surprised, Electro is, that Spider-Man's got big gloves on and can punch him. He knocks him into the metal cell bars, and he says, my electric current revitalizes me. Now I'll be stronger than ever. I've got to keep him away till my eyes clear. These steel bearings will do the trick. And he trips him up. He dodges one of the inmates, punches him, leaps over some others, kicks a gun out of somebody's hand. So nimble. Let's get down. We can't tackle Spider-Man. Anything's better than facing him. We didn't realize how soft we had it in our nice, quiet cells. Look out, the police are down here. You were expecting maybe the Pony Express? I think we've got them all now, but Electro's still at large. So Spider-Man's mostly dodging, and Electro's like, look, I could just shoot you with this gun. If you're going to keep dodging all my electricity, I'm just going to shoot you with a gun. But Spider-Man kicks a bucket of sand at him. Here's a bucket of sand for you to chew on while you're making up that slow-witted mind of yours. Is that the best you can do? Don't you know that electrical current can turn sand to glass? I love this shot of Electro. Sure, I know it, but while you're busy showing off, it gives me time to shoot my web at your gun, jamming it so you can't fire. Do I make myself clear? Is that a pun? Like the glass is clear? Do I make myself clear?
He's so sassy.
I feel like this could be read as anime dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird for them to narrate what they're doing. Like, as you're doing this, I'll be doing this. Do I make myself clear? It's like, this is all supposed to be happening in split seconds, but they feel the need to, like, slow down time to be like, just in case you didn't get it. I mean, I probably, without the words, I wouldn't have known he's making glass there.
Right.
So eventually Spider-Man realizes, if I can't keep dodging these wires forever. He's got like electrical whip kind of thing going on. And he finds a water main with a fire hose attached. Say, what kind of science major am I anyway? Why didn't I think of this right away? Water and electricity just don't mix. Now, if I can just hit the mark in time. I did it. It's a real short circuit. It stopped him cold. Life sure is funny. Here's one of the most powerful criminals of all time, and what finally beat him? Just a dousing from a plain ordinary water hose. Might as well remove his mask and see who he is. If this was a movie, I'd gasp in shock, and then I'd say, good heavens, the butler. This guy I never saw before. Oh, well, it won't take the police long to find out who he is. I love that, and he's like, someone I don't know. Okay. Well, Electro was this guy.
What are the odds?
So he's like, I'm going to take some pictures while he's knocked out. And J. Jonah is rambling to Betty Brant, and she says, Peter Parker's here. He's like, oh, that son of a gun. I got a lot to say to him. And Peter shows them more pictures, action shots of Electro fighting Spider-Man. They're the real thing. They're worth a fortune. Parker, you little son of a gun. And stupid, sneaky Jameson says, well, I was going to make you pay back that $1,000 because those pictures were going to get me in trouble, but now let's just say we're even. So he doesn't get paid for the second set of photos. He's like, you would have owed me because you tricked me, even though it was the photos he was demanding. So he gets both the sets of photos that he wants. So he's going to stop the presses, and they're going to put out an extra with the new imagery here. And Betty Brant is like, well, why did you go to the detention center to get pictures? Why do you need money to help your aunt? I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't know that they don't have money. I guess he never directly says that. But he says something to her, and she says, Peter, I never told you why I left high school last year and took a job. I never told you about somebody I once knew who reminded me of you, but I don't want to be hurt again. Okay, Betty, I get the message. So, I'm not Mr. Perfect. Sorry to have bothered you. And they have a fight, and he storms out. Aunt May is feeling better. Peter's saying, fate can sure hand a guy some hard knocks. Everything sucks. I'll have to apologize to her. If she ever got mad at me, I couldn't take it. But who is it but Betty to run up and say, don't be angry? And they start making up in the end and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be mad at each other.
Wow.
And we get this fun last page. Marvel's Merry Madmen are exceptionally proud of Steve Ditko's superb portrayal of Spider-Man in action, drawn especially to demonstrate his agility and his almost unbelievable powers of coordination. What a long sentence. As a fast-moving, quick-thinking acrobatic stuntman, the old web spinner is undeniably without peer. ... Just as sensational Steve is without peer. Steve is tops, I lost my line there, in presenting Spidey's unique brand of lightning-swift action. It's a mouthful. 2 real long sentences. And start here for Spidey's living action demonstrated.
Got quite the weird butt shots there.
A lot of butt shots. So let's see. He jumps up on the roof, does a little loop-de-loop off the light onto this one. It goes here.
Down there.
And he bounces. And I feel like he should have just gone, whoa.
Right.
I guess he needed to get to different levels of height.
Well,
when he went back down there, I was like, that seems self-defeating. He could have gone from there to there.
But he's getting faster.
He's just showing off. And next issue, if we ever return to this collection, he's going to meet the Enforcers, who are some of the lamest bad guys.
Their superpowers are wide brim hats.
Yup.
And hair.
They look like stereotypical.
Oh my gosh!
Mobster
Look at that
kind
big
of
guy.
guys.
Ooh.
That guy's got a mask on.
That
guy's squinty. He's like if the Hulk was just a person.
Loaf of bread for a head.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy Texas. He'll lasso
the guy
you.
with the
It's like if Spider-Man can dodge electric bolts, you think that lasso is gonna be.
Right.
Oh, he didn't. You got him with the lasso. You didn't see him winding up with it for 5 minutes.
True.
I mean, electricity moves pretty fast, I would think.
So now we have the Flash, the fastest man alive. Can the Crimson Comet escape Colonel Computon's century-spanning boomerang trap?
Some of these alliterative blurbs are hard to say out loud. Can the Crimson Comet escape? Comet escape, it's hard to say.
Yes!
Can the Crimson Comet escape Colonel Computron's century-spanning boomerang trap?
I know, and I was looking for, this looks like it won't be too complicated in the speaking.
I think we did a Computron a long time ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
I remember Flash is trapped in a video game, isn't he?
But this is funny, like if you go backwards from present to back in time, if you go up here, it's like makes it look like the present is just a comic, 2D comic.
This is World War II, World War I, Native American conflicts, Civil War.
Well,
founding of America.
That should be before that.
Maybe I get like the Western expansion or something, like when they
Yeah.
And then that was like the Mayflower. Is that what that's supposed to be?
Pirate
Because we've
ship.
got
That tiny little skull.
well, we got the
Oh,
crossing of the
Right. Delaware.
yeah. Hey, what? This is 1982. I forgot to mention. I think that would have been 63 because it was issue 9, and he was founded in 63. So.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think he wasn't monthly for a little while because Amazing Fantasy for Spider-Man was his first appearance, and then the series proper. So it could have been 64, I guess. So quite a distance from.
So how old is Spider-Man?
He's as old as you are. He was born in 1963.
No, his comic came out in 1963, but he was already in high school.
Yeah, he was
he'd
born as a teenager in high school.
So he'd be in his late 70s.
He would have been born in like the 50s, you're saying? Or late 40s?
Yeah.
If he's like 16.
Yeah, so he'd be.
Wow.
And see, some of my youngest aunt and uncle are like 16 years older than me. So Aunt May, his parents must have been elderly when they had him for Aunt May to be that old. Jeez, that's crazy. Anyway, back to the Flash.
So this could be a time travel one?
Yeah, it's and once again, I hate to say it, but the cover promises more than what we actually get in the story.
I like the way the big Boomerang looks.
Yeah.
Is Captain Boomerang in this one too?
It is. My name is Colonel Computron. My name is Colonel Computron. My name is Colonel Computron.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't there an old show that was something like that?
Yep.
You have to guess the identity.
So what's my line or something like
you
that?
have to see who's the real deal or something like that.
By asking questions, yeah. So, yep, we have the Flash, guest villain Captain Boomerang.
I like Captain Boomerang.
So it gives you a little clue about the Boomerang that we get to witness here. Look at this guy. Little tiny little eyes. But Central City, the home office of the Wiggins Toy Corporation, where the entire company staff has been assembled to hear a grim speech from their leader, W.W. Wiggins. And so what he's saying is that he has been under attack by this Captain Computron, and so he has the Flash here to protect him, and he has his guards. So, you know, he's grateful that they are continuing to work, but that, you know, his money has to go to paying them. He's a corporate jerk, and so they're all listening to him. He goes, but one senior member of the Wiggins staff, one Basil Nerblin, to be precise.
Basil Nerblin. Basil Nerblin?
Or Basil Nerblin, yeah. To be precise, seems to find his employer's serious plight just a touch amusing. He's giggling.
If your name's Nerblin, you got to wear a bow tie.
You probably do giggle too. WW is notorious for paying his employees rock-bottom wages and hoarding all the profits for himself. Fringe benefits, that's a laugh and a half. Oh, he is clever, isn't he? I still wish you hadn't gone public with my findings, Mr. Wiggins. Now that Computron knows we've linked him with your staff, he'll be even more cautious than ever. So the Flash, in studying what's going on, found that there is a radioactive trail from one of the employees to Computron. Like they live with him or they know him in real life.
They're roommates.
And so it's linked, but like an idiot, he let it slip. So now Computron is staying back, and the Flash is like, oh, well, I'm going to go patrol the city. And he's like, well, no, don't leave me. And he's like, I got to. And he's like, oh, smug. That speedster can be pretty uppity sometimes. What could he have to do that could be more important than guarding my assets? Maybe if I had tried to bribe him with a sizable bonus.
I like how consistently his neck fat rolls over his tight collar. That's a crazy facial expression.
You're right. It's in every shot.
It looks like the Kingpin dropped acid or something.
Ew.
He's like, ah! He's going insane.
So he's getting
He's almost got cat eyes or
he
something.
does. But he's got that bulldog face, too.
That Boomerang has little pincers on it. He couldn't just knock it out of his hand. He has to delicately grab it on the way.
He's like, but no, he would have insisted I donate it to his favorite charity. I know how his kind operates. Maybe my Havana cigar, snatched by a boomerang. WW, I knew you wouldn't mind if I smoke. You, how did you get past my bodyguards?
Wait a minute. He's thinking, my cigar snatched by a... And Captain Boomerang off panel finishes his sentence. He can read his thoughts, too. He's like, I like to lead with the boomerang, but I am a telepath as well.
And he almost looks like he's in drag, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's a complicated villain.
So, now is that any way to greet your very first moneymaker, or have you forgotten how many extra sales my criminal debut once provided the Wiggins toy Boomerang? And first you promised to protect me, Digger, then you run out on me. Whose side are you on this time? I was curious you should ask, old friend. A mutual acquaintance of ours has provided a most equitable trade-off. He helps me rid the world of my foe, the Flash, and in return, I help him wipe out his pet enemy. Guess who? What? You teaming up with that psycho Computron? To do me in? You wouldn't. You couldn't. You owe me, Digger. You said so yourself. You don't know how tempting this offer is, WW. Don't quote me. So he's teamed up. And we find out that he's teamed up with Computron and blah, blah, blah. And we go back to the Flash. He's on his way out to get groceries. And he runs into, good gosh, Fiona, you're back from your trip a week early. And she gives him the cold shoulder. And she's like, oh, like that makes any difference to a swinger like you. And he's like, swinger? What are you talking about? She's like, oh, don't, or he goes, she says, oh, don't you? That's very strange considering your lifestyle is already common knowledge to the general public. And he's thinking, and she puts up this magazine article with him, and he's the mystery date to this screen star. And he's thinking, blast, Fiona would never believe me if I tried to explain that Daphne was once my childhood sweetheart and nothing more than a good friend now. So she goes in, and he doesn't know what to say.
She wouldn't believe that? That's not that crazy of a story.
I know, but then he goes on to think,
Couldn't he have her speak to her and be, yeah, we're friends?
Yeah, you'd think so.
She'll never believe that.
But then he's thinking, well, maybe I do like her. And then he hears over the radio that this is your dispatcher. That's a cancel on the pickup at Fordham Square. Police have roped off the area. Some flat going down about a giant boomerang snagging traffic on the scene. He's like, So he takes off running, and he gets to the bushes, hits the old ring where the uniform comes flinging out.
I'm glad we read comics and not Screen Star Monthly. What kind of loser buys that?
And as he runs into his uniform, he's thinking, next stop, Fordham Square. So he gets there. Yeah, these are excellent drawings, the way that they do that. You think he's got the strongest ankles in the world. He's always sliding in.
Yeah, it would suck to have super speed, but your ankles are not super strong. Ow! Stopping is so difficult.
Look at that.
Yikes.
It's on bended knee. So he shows up, and he's like, whoa, the captain has plagued me with various forms of giant boomerangs before, but this number has to take first prize. I could be just overly suspicious, but it almost seems as if this boomerang has the very same high-tech look that I've seen before on Colonel Computron's computerized uniform. If I'm right, this is one team-up that could mean big trouble for me and Central City. So he immediately sees it and puts two and two together, and then we have old Digger here.
I like how the Flash always stops to talk to the villain.
Yes.
It's like, shouldn't you just subdue him as soon as you see him? You're super fast.
Yes. So as they're talking,
It must seem like he's talking in slow motion, too, because the Flash is so... You would think he thinks faster than a person. You would have to navigate and not run into a cliff face or somewhere off a cliff.
Wow.
So, like, he's probably like, greetings. The Flash is just patiently waiting.
Wow, I never thought about that. You wonder if everybody just gets a little more insufferable to the Flash,
Right.
you know?
You think it's hard waiting in line at Aldi. When you're the Flash, you're like, I could steal all this shit. Nobody would even see me leave.
Wow. So as they're talking, Colonel Computron's back here with a gun, shoots, pop, and it actually hits the Flash and knocks him out. But then Diggins here is, if the Colonel's aim was on target, Flash should already be too groggy to know what's going on. Just as we calculated, in this dazed state, he's become trapped by our temporal boomerang's fast-building vibratory flux. As I will, if I don't fly the coop according to plan. So he was thinking of leaving, jumping out. Computron flies up there, hits him back in. No, you've got to pull me off before it's already too late, my friend. The boomerang has begun its irreversible temporal shift. Both you and Flash are out of my way for good, on a one-way ticket out of the 20th century.
So they can hit him with whatever pellet that makes him groggy, but they can't just shoot him with a bullet.
Right?
Get him with this groggy pellet, and then I'll send him back in time. It's just too complicated.
Yeah, and then they're just getting him stuck to the side of
two
the
of
boomerang.
them to come up with this plan.
Yeah, right? And so he knocks them back in, and they do their little psychedelic time traveling. And when he realizes, as it slows, without warning, the swirling forces of time start to give way to the tangible blue skies of a bygone era. Uh-oh, this must be where Flash and I get off. The boomerang was primed to fling us several centuries into the past. We couldn't be very precise, but the news gets worse. And he says, regardless of the exact year, we calculated the arrival would take place somewhere over the South Pacific, which means a splashdown in the ocean. And my parents never taught little Digger how to swim. Oh.
That's great.
And so they end up landing.
They land on a wooden ship without wrecking it?
Right? Right? And he's coming out of the boomerang, and as he looks down, everybody sees the Flash, because, of course, the boomerang stopped, so he's not stuck to it anymore. And he notices, he must have fallen off from the impact, still out cold from the zapping he took from Computron. And have we all gone daft? How could we suddenly find ourselves with a stowaway 10 days out from the nearest port? Look at the cut of his strange apparel. This bloke must hail from a far distant land indeed. Avast, mateys! He comes down with a flourish. That scarlet swab is with me, Digger the Deadly. They're like, another odd one. Digger the Deadly? And whose seas do you sail for plunder? No, you sail for plunder. Yeah, whose seas do you sail for plunder? Whew. Look, Andy, that's my ship up there.
Look ahoy.
Oh, look ahoy. You're not
Don't
Andy.
call me Andy.
Look ahoy, that's my ship up there. I'm a sky pirate, so I sail the clouds. Sail the clouds? Don't make me laugh. This one's a loon, he is. I say we keel haul the both of them. Then sharks can have at their bloody remains. Unhead me, you foul-smelling swine. It's a good thing I prepared myself for this kind of base brutality. By releasing a pair of delayed reaction boomerangs over the windjammer just before I introduce myself. They're due to strike where I'm standing now. And then thunk, thunk. Oh! Who threw those bent armaments at Long John?
It's a good thing the pirates didn't welcome him with open arms,
With
and
the-
the boomerangs came crashing
just-
down on them. Oops, sorry about that.
Didn't think he'd be nice. So he throws boomerangs at them, and it looks like they're getting a good whooping. But in the end, old Digger takes one to the back of the head,
They hit him with the pepper mill.
and yeah, and they find themselves tied off the side of the ship, and the Flash is still out. So they're
Heavy sleeper.
yeah, and on the count of 3, lads, fire and aim to wound. Aye, Captain, so they'll be bleeding raw when they hit the water. The sharks fancy their red meat. And he's thinking, oh, God, I gotta wake him up. So he's got this little boomerang that gets a little shock, and he's like,
Mini boomerang. Why does it need to be boomerang shaped?
you know, right? And he's thinking, oh, I gotta take this too. But he lets it off. He's like, oh, and then 3. What sort of sorcery is this? And the Flash wakes up and starts spinning. His head comes out.
What?
Make haste, Ned. Cut the rope. Aye.
That's goofy looking.
Aye. Now that Scarlet One flings himself to attack. Thank the stars, Flash woke up just in time to save our dorsals with his patented speed spin, followed up with a centrifugal fling back into the fray. By
It's a good thing pirates back then could see faster than light.
Right? This face coming at me. By Jolly Roger, thrusting his sword at this red dog is like trying to slice through smoke. Oof! Such speed cannot be the work of a mere mortal. And he's just running through, knocking everybody out. And then we cut back to Central City. But let us leave the Flash in the past for the time being to return to the present and the residential address of a certain Wiggins toy employee. This canasta game with the girls came up rather suddenly, didn't it, Francine? You're a fine one to talk, Basil. Nerblin. Since when have you taken up night swimming at the YMCA? Please, you two. What a pair of bummers. Oof, that's no way to address your parents, Lena. Ever since you two started arguing about Daddy's crummy salary and his tightwad boss, this apartment's been a combat zone. I'm going over to Trudy's to study.
See Colonel Computron?
I know, right?
She looks like a similar character.
And the lips.
The mouth, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thus, this particular evening, the 3 members of the Nerblin family have chosen to go their separate ways. And yet one of them is concealing a dastardly secret. For one of these Nerblins is planning a far more nefarious deed this night. A night conceived to be immediately fatal for an infamous tightwad named Willard Wiggins. Dun dun. Meanwhile, 200 some odd years ago, on the high seas, let's rejoin the fastest man alive after he has subdued his pirate captors. Remember, Boomerang, once we return to 1982, this truce dissolves. You're an escaped felon, and it's my duty to apprehend you. No apology necessary, old foe. Another day of shipboard fun with this saltwater rat pack is the accommodations at the Central City jailhouse seem suddenly rather civilized. But are you sure you can pull this stunt off? The temporal boomerang wasn't designed for a return trip. So they're working on it and start the psychedelic trip back. And he's like hanging out of the door, which is crazy.
Seems unsafe.
No strapping on. And Flash is just riding on the outside, which, yeah, interesting. But what
Get
better?
hit by any debris or anything?
No. There's no time. There's no time later back then. What better cue for shifting to a certain well-fortified estate on the outskirts of Central City, where it appears not even a task force of professional bodyguards was able to prevent their employer's worst nightmare from breaking down the door.
You know, I like how it's time travel. Like, you have to... You're changing yourself from existing in one period in time into another, but there's an intervening moment where you go through whatever that is, or like
Yeah.
you fade out and fade back in, or like you travel. What's going on during that? What is that time? I'm going to time travel to the time I time traveled to prevent myself from time. No, it's just weird that there has to be some. That's such a. They don't just like, okay, suddenly we're in a different time. There's like a little animation or something to be like,
right.
Here's, just so we're clear, this is a different time now. Like time travel in different dimensions is such a common thing in media nowadays that it's funny to think that, like,
right.
Oh, we really need to sell this to them.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Yeah, when I was a kid, that's the stuff that I loved thinking about, just getting like really caught up in all the little details of, time travel and like
How much time does it take to time
time
travel? It's a really long process, actually. They were in there for like 5 years.
Yeah. Crazy. So, a nightmare which now speaks in its unrecognizable, electronically garbled voice. Every one of your hired goons has been brain blitzed by one of my little toys, WW. They won't revive until morning. Far too late to be of any help to you, I'm afraid. That is an interesting... I wonder who it is.
I think it's the daughter.
She is very square looking.
She looks like she could be crossing her arms like that in that picture.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
You're trying to throw me off the scent, but I know I'm right.
This is sick and insane. Only a raving madman would think of connecting a video game with a custom-made electric chair. Tisk tisk. Insult me if you must. But I'd be devoting all my attention to the screen, WW. Considering if even one of my blips manages to collide with yours, you'll be instantly fried alive by 20,000 volts.
He's sweating like Rudy Giuliani or something in that parking lot.
But please, Computron, the odds are 6-1, and your blips have been computerized to move faster than mine. It's not fair. True, but then life isn't fair either, is it, WW? Especially life at the Wiggins Toy Corporation, where all your loyal, devoted employees and their families have to somehow manage on pitifully low paychecks even Scrooge wouldn't sign. A most touching speech, Colonel. What's next? A collection for union dues? Oh, kill blips, full speed ahead. Aye, it's hopeless. I'll be electrocuted for sure. Not necessarily, sir. Those blips have to catch you first. The Flash! And calling upon super speed reflexes, reaction time, and coordination, the fastest hand alive manipulates WW's control stick with eye-boggling results. Fantastic, Flash. You're moving my blip so fast, Computron's blips can't begin to track it. That looks like he's beating the crap out of
Yeah, he does.
Those evasive blip maneuvers will buy me the 1/400th of a second I need to safely disconnect Wiggins from Computron's lethal hot seat before the blips connect and the current starts to flow. I don't know how you and the Speedster managed to bounce back to 1982 alive, but congratulations, Captain. Flash and I will be only too glad to tell you all about it, Colonel, after my lasso boomerangs have bound you from helmet to heel. I would relish nothing better than combat with each of you separately, but when it comes to taking on you two as a team, I believe I'll pass. One day I shall repay you for your act of defection, Captain. You may count on it. Yeah, I bet it is the daughter.
It seems like it.
Yeah. And then, seizing the moment, the rogue villain quickly extracts an arrow boomerang. So he's going up. This reminds me of Batman. He's going up the early detective series where they always have a hole in the floor or in the ceiling. Oh, well, it would be a crime to let Computron's convenient getaway route to the open air go to waste. Fast thinking, Digger. So he throws.
Ooh. Good thing he didn't actually chop his head off.
Right? and blocks him. And he takes him down. And moments later, after a super speed search of the area, I'm sorry about Computron's escape. You've got my word. I won't rest till he's been brought to justice, whoever he is. Until that day, I doubt I'll be getting very much rest myself, Flash. But it's a shame about Digger. I almost hate to see him go to jail. After all, he tried his best to honor our deal and rid me of Computron. Maybe Digger's paid his debt to you, Mr. Wiggins. Now he has to answer for past crimes and pay his debt to society. Shall we look in on the Nerblin household and our 3 suspects the morning after? You would have been proud of me, Basil, dear. I was the big winner last night in my canasta game. Really, Cupcake? That must have been while I was swimming my 50 laps at the YMCA pool. And how about you, Princess? How was your evening? Did you get much accomplished last night, Luna? Not as much as I expected, but you'll see. I'll do better next time. Do we have any more syrup?
This looks like the same character.
It does. It does. Ew, look at her hand. She puts her pinky out.
It's fancy.
Next issue, Heatwave launches a new attack on the Flash. Or does he? Catch the action in Dead Heat for a Scarlet Speedster. On sale, second week in May.
And this one has a backup in it.
This one has a backup. And I have to admit, this one kept putting me to sleep. So I don't even really remember what's going on here. But
some of these are like, sometimes Doctor Strange is like that, or Silver Surfer, where like you have vague images of the character like going through space or different dimensions, and there's just like a shit ton of exposition.
And this one laid me out. I kept dozing off reading it. And yeah. So it's Dr. Fate. In this moment, that's all he can be. And he can be certain of. He is trapped in a
Nihilverse,
a nightmarish hallucinatory dimension where nothing is real and reality is nothingness. Except one, and then it has all this. A place where strange, powerful, snake-like shapes can appear literally from nowhere and permit no human breath. A place where no human truth holds, no physical law obtains. Except one. Not even the presence of the fate entity inhabiting archaeologist Kent Nelson's body can render the mortal form invulnerable. For even though it is around Nelson that the tentacles draw taut, it is Dr. Fate who feels the pain. So that's kind of cool to have another entity, but somebody take over your body, but then you don't feel the pain. It's the entity and not.
That's interesting.
That's better than you getting back. And who is it? The computer, who is it that the professor and the student and they join forces and they're.
Oh, is it
the Atomic Man or
Firestorm?
Firestorm, yeah. And where it wears them both out.
Mm-hmm.
This would be better, I would think.
I just found that weird to have like 2 characters that become one thing. It seems like it would be an interesting aspect to explore, but I've never got into Firestorm too much.
No.
Beyond like what we covered in a couple of episodes.
Right.
Only a couple.
Right.
I like that volcano though.
Yeah. It is in such state that the events which brought him here unfold before his memory's eye. They had begun with the crystal orb of Nabu, that window on all possible futures, which acts as a mystical alarm, summoning him. This time, what Nelson saw there would have traumatized the lesser man into disassociation, the destruction of the world by natural forces gone mad. So that's kind of scary. I like how they put
They're hiding the credits down there.
Yeah, nice. The artwork is really nice, but yeah, it's interesting.
That's a cool monster, though.
Yes, he's really cool. And as whenever the crystal beckons, Nelson had no choice. He gave himself up to fate's control. And the Major's mystic powers trace the implicated malefic force to its unlikely origin point, a cornfield in Iowa. Specifically, a corn cob's single mutant kernel glowing ruby red and sinister. Yeah. When the Lord of Order persisted in investigating and refused to quit the property, its owner opened fire on him. And that's when the farmer's shotgun was revealed as nothing ever fired by any earthly marksman. It's
Fusillade
of powerful magical energies hurled the mage out of the mortal realm and into the non-place in which he now finds himself.
I think fusillade is like a barrage of projectiles.
Okay, so it's like okay. So, yeah.
It's hard to make out the inking there. The place where he may very quickly be unable to find or see or even think anything else. I can barely see the color of the words.
Yeah, that's...
It is cool that it makes them pop a little bit on blue. I'm sure it's just worn out with age.
It's very artistically done. I mean,
for a story about a rotten kernel in corn,
right?
It's very metaphysical.
Right? And at Fate's departure point, his assailant speaks with unconcealed glee. Soon now, my new comrade, you who were once my opponent, soon our common enemy, the one called Fate, will lose his mortal host's life. And then we two defectors from the age, from the multiverse itself, shall celebrate our victory by refashioning the cosmos. But that human life is not yet lost. And with the last exhalation, the contracting tentacles will allow Fate gasp out an invocation. My Marduk, Marduk of Babylon, look with favor on this, your humble servant. Grant dispensation to him whose charge is to preserve existence. And therefore grant him, too, your power to destroy. Apparently Fate's entity has heard and answered. So you have all this spell happening. For the tentacles are sundered, but only to condemn him once more to plummet helplessly. In time, he comes to rest, but the landing site is most unexpected. Blessed Osiris, what place is this? It abounds with greenery and light, and yet I sense here a virulence awesome beyond imagining. It lurks at the edge of this world. It waits, unseen. You sense not but figments, Fate. I am all that truly inhabits this place. However, my function is merely a decorative one. Had you not suspected that, Lord of Order? This realm fairly reeks of chaos, of which I suspect no thing less than deception, and nothing else. No doubt the entity of this pseudo-cosmos is likewise decorative. Precisely, Fate, except, of course, for Van Diemen. But then you could attest to the reality of the Lord of Chaos, could you not? Yeah, he's demons of Set. This is just so crazy. And but even as Fate encounters perhaps his most fearsome enemy, the wife of his mortal self is having an encounter of a completely different kind. You'll love the steak, whatever that is, steak. Lately, the escargot hasn't been up to Etnie's best. But there's still no better place, I know, if you don't mind the nouveau cuisine. Listen to me making a fool out of myself. Since I was a kid, they've been saying that Vern Copeland, he sure can ramble on. I guess it's true what they say about old dogs and new tricks. I mean, you're not old, Mr. Copeland. You're an excellent vintage. Then. Speaking of which, a toast to the success of the Ninurta exhibit, and especially the lectures accompanying it. I must say, Mrs. Nelson, when you told me you were an archaeologist yourself and you'd accompanied your husband on the
Nimrod
dig, Well, I was as surprised that much is true, and I'm glad you've agreed to give the lectures while your husband is away. But I have to confess, if you'd said no, well, I would have thought up some excuse to meet you anyway. And she's thinking, wow, I swear this guy is, what's the phrase these days? Hitting on me? For a museum piece? I mean, a museum director? He's a real fast operator. Wonder what he'd say if he knew I'm the same age he is, but even better preserved. So details on page 8. That's very flattering, Mr. Copeland. But I do hope you're just trying to be charming. I'm a married woman. Mrs. Nelson, please call me Vern. And we flash back to Dr. Fate as he's fighting.
Oh, that's really cool action.
Yeah, and that guy is huge. He's got Dr. Fate in his hand. And
yeah, that's pretty cool.
I like how the close-up of Dr. Fate, it's his helmet is, you hardly see that it's him. It almost looks like it could be a building or the edge of some ship or something.
The eye holes are so small.
Yeah, it's not like Dr. Doom.
There's no mouth.
Yeah. So they continue their battle. And blessed Ormaz, the creature is inconsistent even with its own nature. It achieves its goal, driven me to act irrationally, but then suffers for it. So he takes it down a bit, but then...
Oh, that's cool. It's like a running egg eye.
And look at this. It's just a hand with tentacles and falling the eyeball down, but 'twould be profitless to contemplate what may dwell in this creature's mind, if mind there be. So this creature is chaos. All this stuff...
You know it's going to be a good comic when it has Twud in it.
Twud.
Twould be profitless.
Yeah.
Sounds like something Thor would say. Doctor Strange.
That way lies madness and my own destruction. Ere I lose this momentary advantage, I must escape this Nileverse while Van Diemen, that'd be a great name for a band.
Sounds like somebody's neighbor. Van Diemen down the street. Keeps dripping his eyeball on everybody.
While Van Diemen is yet disabled, and while I still possess the wherewithal to cast it is then that the Fate learns that any of Van Diemen's parts are deadly as his whole. So even though he's come apart, each part of him is as deadly as
Continues
if they're
to fight.
yeah.
He's trapped in his eyeball.
Oh, ick. And that this Lord of Chaos is not only accustomed to suffering, but is in fact fueled by suffering. Moreover, he is not above inflicting anguish upon himself. So that's an interesting... I mean, the artwork is fantastic. So they continue fighting. Van Diemen's prime objective, superseding the destruction of order or even of Dr. Fate. Van Diemen exists to exist. He is relentlessness incarnate. And now Fate realizes that Van Diemen will be deterred only by one of Fate's most potent and energy-draining spells. Spawn of chaos, evil incarnate, by the power of life and order, I cast you out. He uses the Ankh. And I cannot know the implications of branding a Lord of Chaos with the mark of order, but it is as I had dared hope. Van Diemen is neutralized. The time is now for escape. With a silent prayer, Fate sends his mind outward.
Would.
And probing, exploring, in search of another mind with which he can connect and whose light will guide him homeward. By Ishtar, how can this be? My spell of detection reaches beyond this Nileverse to the tower in Salem, and yet there is no trace of the woman ordinarily. Ordinarily, she is detectable. So he's reaching out to connect with his wife. And that's why she said, I'm as old as he is, so the connection with Dr. Fate kind of keeps her from aging as fast as she normally would. And
Interesting.
That's that. And by her magical aura, where is she? And she's having an encounter herself. And frankly, Mrs. Nelson, I think you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. And while Dr. Fate discovers he had been precipitate in thinking Van Diemen vanquished, the wife of his mortal self and another man discover each other.
Uh-oh. Poor Dr. Fate.
Yeah. And that is it.
Next, on the Blood Sun. You know,
So I'm not very versed in Dr. Fate at all.
I was just gonna say I don't have many memories of reading Dr. Fate, and I can kind of see why. It's a little dry.
Yeah.
It's a
yeah.
little. Sometimes these backups are hard to follow because it's like, how much can you really do with less real estate than the main story anyway? I mean, the art is
Right.
amazing, but it's hard to get into the story. I think maybe it's just an odd chapter to come in on.
Right.
Because you're not really invested in, like, we didn't get to see that rotten corn, the mutated corn kernel. Anyway, if you
Right.
enjoyed watching this, please give us a comment and like and a subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. And thanks for watching.